Hello there, great person, and welcome back to Let's Dive into Warhammer 40K. Today, we will look at the destruction of planets and worlds. And we are going to react to the video called The Most Powerful Weapons in Warhammer 40K Lore by our good friend Weshammer, and he's probably going to do a brilliant job. Also, I might have chosen a clickbaity title because, as you know, I'm a physicist, so you will probably get some physics as well here today with the space weapon things, and yeah, we'll just see how realistic they are as well. So I think that would be fun. I can tell you, like, I probably not always, but I might with some estimate whether that seems plausible or not what they do. I mean, if they say they like throw a warp breach at you, I have no clue what that means in physics. But yeah, I will try my best, and let's just go have some fun. And yeah, as always, like, subscribe to Weshammer and to me if you like this video, and yeah, comment on what you thought of these weapons. And yeah, let's see what the most destructive one is. Will there be a galaxy eater? I already know the Black Fortress thing that they threw at Cadia. They fought until the last man. Anyway, let's go. So let's see how many ways there are to destroy a planet or whatever, and let's see what Weshammer tells us about exactly that.
Warhammer 40K is by far one of the most bombastic, brutal, and over-the-top universes ever created.
Yeah.
And its lore is full of some super scary doomsday weapons that not enough people know about. So join me today as we deep dive 10 of the most powerful weapons that exist in the grim dark future.
Oh yeah,
we're going to be talking about a handheld weapon that not only destroys both a person's physical body and soul.
Okay, so we start very small. Like, yes, it's powerful, but
also actually retcons them out of existence. An ancient alien trebuchet that is capable of throwing
it's a communist weapon, it unpersons you. Great.
Asteroids all the way across the galaxy at speeds multiple times faster than the speed of light. And
yeah, we'll talk about that when it comes up. Oh god, I should have gone physicist here. I already, whatever, let's go.
Finally, a terrifying construct created by the Catan that not only has the power to create entire star systems, but if used improperly, can destroy everything that has ever or will ever exist. We're going to be talking about all that and a whole lot more.
Yeah,
but
that's
first,
what
a quick shout out to this video's sponsor, and then we're going to dive headfirst into the grimdark. Empires and Puzzles is not only an amazing...
Okay, we will skip his weird advertisement. Oh, it's a long advertisement, but yeah, I will tell you exactly what I think about asteroids flying with multiples of the speed of sound, light, sorry.
This video.
Whatever, so.
Number 10, the retcon gun. The first weapon that we're going to talk about on this list is admittedly a pretty weird one. It may not have the planet-cracking, solar system-destroying, and galaxy-sundering raw power of some of the weapons that will be featured later on in this video. But when I first found out about it, which admittedly was relatively recently, it absolutely had to make the cut. It's often referred to in the community as the ontological gun.
Okay, so ontological things are, as far as I know, like things that are. Like, what is there?
A reference to ontology, which in metaphysics is the philosophical study of being closely related to concepts such as existence, becoming, and reality, which in fairness makes a lot of sense for what this thing is.
Yeah, so short philosophical thing, like I've got this remote control in my hand, is it real? That would be an ontological question, like, is this a real thing, or am I just being wired into a computer that makes me think I'm holding a remote currently and recording a video and looking at a very cool person. Hello, cool person. But as well, like that's basically an ontological question. Like it's the question of, do we just, like, you might know it from mathematics, like are mathematical objects real? And that is something that is like a very, very complicated question, but a question similarly as complicated as the question, does this exist? Because, like, other physics things we describe real. Like, it's the same one as for the mass question, but, like, I think even more mindfuckery. So, anyway, it's an ontological weapon. It makes you unexist. Great.
But I personally have a much more, in my opinion, hilariously accurate name for it, the retcon gun, because that's literally what it does, so I'm going to be calling it that for the rest of this segment. We don't know what the real name of the retcon gun is or its origins, other than it is a product created by humans within the dark age of technology. At first glance, the weapon appears to be pretty similar to many of the other molecular disruption weapons that exist within the grimdark future, as it seems just about every major sentient species has some kind of variant on this class of firearm. When the weapon is used, the retcon gun tears apart matter at the molecular level, causing any living thing hit by it to be retconned out of reality. And I don't just mean that in a fun way of saying that when you get shot by this thing, you evaporate. I mean literally every molecule in your body, every ectoplasmic piece of your soul, every moment in time that you have ever existed, and every memory of you in every living soul that you have ever interacted with is utterly and thoroughly ripped out of the timeline.
Okay. So, yes, that is pretty powerful. Something I would consider possible if I buy the concept of warp. Like, let's say there is warp, and let's say it's this field. I could imagine the warp field to be a field that is connected through quantum entanglement to your body. So, I mean, if you evaporate the body, it might like spread to your representation in the warp and disintegrate you there as well. I mean, that's why not? But the thing like taking you out of time, what does that have to do with anything? That's very interesting, but it's more like magic. That sounds more like magic. The other stuff like disintegrating molecules and your warp thing as well, I would say, yeah, that perhaps like if warp is a field that you live in, like your mind lives in, and that's entangled to your body, yes, I could see that happening. Through decoherence, you would probably like destroy the soul and the body then. But the time thing is weird. Like, we don't even know what time is, as far as I know. Like, yes, we write it as a T in physics, and we can like put values into it, and it does stuff. But we don't really know what it is. So, anyway, let's see what he says.
It's as if you quite literally were retconned out of existence. How the idea for such a horrifying weapon was ever conceived, let alone how this thing was created, is a truly disturbing mystery.
No. What? I highly disagree. That is like, they've done that in communist Russia. Stalin has done that a lot of times. Like, obviously he didn't create a gun, but he unpersoned people. And you probably know that, but if you don't, so in communist Russia, if you were not for the party, if you were not for the common good, you were like taken and erased. Like all your documents were erased, your family members might have been killed. I don't know about that one, but it might have happened. All photos taken of you were like re-photoshopped, like they didn't have Photoshop, but an equivalent where you were erased from all documents, and they made it so no one would ever know you existed. Like that was one of Stalin's tactics. And I think if I recall correctly, he used that mainly against strong political opponents, like some ministers that were against him or some people from the press that were against him. I think high-level people. But so, I mean, that's like, it already happened. Like, and if someone had the technology, like let's say Stalin had the technology like this, he would do that. Like, why is that? That's not a mystery. It's like humans can be dicks and assholes and terrifyingly horrifying. Because it doesn't have to be the tyrannid that is horrifying. It might be your fellow human you like eat lunch with every day that will show you true terror, which is something this universe explores brilliantly, as far as I have noted. Like as far as I know. But so I would contest this point here. I don't think it's a mystery how someone could have devised something like that. How someone could have created that, yes. But how someone could have devised that, no. Like, that's human shittery.
Many would doubt that such a thing even exists, but we get a pretty good look at one in Lionel Johnson's Primarch novel, Lord of the First. He braced the weight of his gun and targeted the tidal surge of infected crewmen rushing up from the storage bay towards him. He pulled the trigger.
Okay.
A spray of explosive psychoactive rounds incinerated the tightly packed mortal's body and soul, each individual screaming into a pyre that burned across 2 realms.
Yes, that makes sense. That is very likely. Like that seems very realistic. If we by the premise I laid out before. Like that, yeah, that's fine. I'm like that might even be.
Our event counted 25 men, armed with stub pistols and wrenches. A second after he had counted them, they were gone. Every ripple and echo that suggested that they had ever existed eradicated. And even Arvon's eidetic recall struggled to conjure any details of their appearance, except that there had been 25 armed with stub pistols and wrenches.
So they're not really eradicated. Okay, so now it's getting weird. Yeah, if you write something like this, you really have to think it through, and I'm not sure it was done here. But I just want to say I would be careful with things like this if someone writes this. And this is a bit it feels inconsistent, I guess, but he remembers there are people there. If it really retcons you wouldn't remember it. You would completely change thinking. Like, I mean, what you could argue is that oh God, I'm nerding so much right now. I'm sorry. But so what you could argue, I guess, is that it destroys your body and your soul, and through your soul, because your soul is destroyed, and your soul might have been connected through the psychic fields or whatever, and you might have been connected to that as well through his eidetic recall thing. You know, like that might have been a warp future or something like that. And because they were destroyed in the warp as well, like the souls were destroyed, that like you were like cut off from that. But yeah.
An itch walked up his spine, and in spite of his discipline, Arvon struggled to suppress a shudder as he lowered the weapon and continued his advance. The crazy thing to remember...
Yeah, so in this passage, it does not say they are retcon. It just says their souls and bodies are evaporated from my understanding here. Like, he did not lay out a clear argument for why they would be gone from time, which is a much higher claim than what he did before. Than what he read just now. So there's probably a passage that says that outright. You know, but if it's just this passage, if it would be just this passage, no, it's not what it does. But what do I know? I mean, I could, like I said, the physics behind that, I could see the soul and the body being disintegrated. If I am generous and say warp field is a field we don't know, but yeah.
About this encounter is that these were crewmen aboard his ship. They had been possessed by a Xenos race known as the Carve, but despite that, this Space Marine knew who they were. They may have just been mortal crewmen, but a Space Marine's memory is absolutely ridiculous. After they disappeared, his Super Astartes brain failed to conjure any memory of them. Can you imagine how much—
No personal memory, I would say. But he's probably right, I'm probably wrong. He's probably right and I'm wrong. It's just hard to because once I have a doubt and have a certain perspective, I tend to believe in that first. I mean, that's natural, but...
much damage an
tell me in the
army
comments,
equipped with
please.
guns like this could do? And not in terms of just conquering territory, but in terms of thoroughly destroying huge swaths of time. If these things were made en masse, or worse, scaled up into much larger and more powerful variants and mounted on the fleets of battleships, the destruction of reality doesn't even really come close to really explain what would happen. There are some things that we as human beings struggle to comprehend. We can imagine guns that liquefy people.
Yeah.
We can imagine things that explode planets, even weapons that launch black holes, destroying entire systems.
Yes, exactly. I hope we get to that. I love that. I've been hoping someone would throw black holes at other people for so long now, and I hope Warhammer has that.
Hell, we can conceive of guns that can destroy entire galaxies. Admittedly, even though we can wrap our mind around it, the logistics of something like that are quite literally incomprehensible. But regardless, the idea makes sense. Guns that alter timelines and erase history with every shot is something, I'm gonna be honest with you, I struggle to even comprehend just what that looks like or what kind of damage that would really do.
Yeah. Let's buy it, let's say it's really what it does, then it would be pretty complicated and it would need a very intelligent person to write it. I would love to read a very intelligently crafted story around this concept, though. That sounds dope as fuck. I really like that. That sounds very badass, and I would love to read it. Like, if there's something like that out there in Warhammer, tell me, because that can be very interesting. But yeah, most of the time when stuff like this is introduced, these stories tend to have a proclivity for logic errors that are pretty apparent after thinking about it for like 2 seconds. So I don't know, but I like the concept. I just don't know how exactly it works in the way that he doesn't, like, he says it's a retcon gun, but what he read to me was not a retcon gun, so I'm not sure.
In my research, I've stumbled across a lot of people talking about this weapon, and many seem to think that it's one of the Adrathic weapons utilized by the Custodians. Ancient Dark Age of technology weapons that were said to be so valuable and destructive, and above all else, coveted by mortals, that the Emperor forbid anyone other than him or his Custodians could have one.
Yeah.
During the Age of Strife, many wars were fought over them by the techno-barbarian lords of Terra. But after the Emperor came to power, he demanded all of them be turned over.
It makes, like, if it would be a timeline-altering weapon, that would make a bit more sense than if it was just a body and soul-destroying weapon. Though body and soul-destroying weapon is probably still pretty powerful because it, like, probably could kill a Primarch, for instance. And last time you told me in the last video I did that Primarchs are pretty resilient to most stuff and almost unkillable. So this might be interesting for that fact alone, but if it really does alter timelines, wow, that would be so powerful, so overpowered. But they need they would basically need to create a whole new universe of story retelling logic for that, and that's damn hard, and not many people could pull it off. I don't know, like let's say it's a movie, I don't even think Christopher Nolan would pull it off. Because in Inception, he really did pull off like this very weird logic thing that was very alike a timeline thing. Inception was like, it was dreamlike, but in Tenet he effed it up very royally. Like Tenet didn't work at all. Like that was just bogus what he did there with the concepts, and it made no sense. Like the story was, I liked what he was going for, but like the physics part, and if you thought about it for like 3 seconds. Like he had some like, because some of the things had logical consequences and some didn't. Anyway, I'm not gonna go into that, and because this is not a Tenet for Nolan video. I love Christopher Nolan. I can't wait for Oppenheimer. But yeah. So anyway, I've rambled on enough. Let's go. Let's see what else he says about this retcon gun.
Punishment for refusing to do so was severe: death, and not just for the individual, but also for their entire family, their neighbor's family, everyone in the city they lived in. Hell, the lore actually says that it was every single living person within that nation that would be condemned to death.
That sounds a lot like what the Emperor did in Foundation.
The Emperor was that afraid of somebody else having access to this technology. That being said, when you read what these weapons actually do, they're certainly super scary, powerful, monomolecular disruption weapons, but they're not ripping people out of the timeline. Personally, I don't think these are the same guns. The retcon gun is in a class all of its own, and hopefully this is the only one left in existence.
Now I am really confused. What? But he just said they were the same ones. So now he says they are not the same ones they fought over. This one just confuses me. Like, let's leave it at that. I could stay here like for 2 hours and think about it, and that would probably get boring pretty quickly. So we'll go on. But yeah.
Whereas the retcon gun is certainly one of the most esoteric and powerful creations of mankind, some of the other species out there are capable of making things way crazier, like the next entry on this list. Number 9. The Aeonic Orb.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
Necron technology. Simple in concept, impossible in its design, and a sheer testament to the overwhelming bombacity of 40K's lore.
Yes, I love Necron to death. I love them. Let's see what weird things they have. I mean, it's an orb, perhaps it's Trazine's orb.
A fair warning, there's going to be a good chunk of Necron Doomsday weapons on here, considering that impossibly advanced ancient technology that defies the known laws of the universe is kind of their thing.
And they need that because they fought the Satan and Great Old Ones.
And the Aeonic Orb is a pristine example of Necron ingenuity. You see, this thing is basically a containment sphere that houses within it the power of an entire sun. These things were said to have been created by the Catan during the War in Heaven, And even back then, they were pretty difficult to create. They are incredibly rare and have only been documented a couple of times.
Okay.
The sphere itself is mounted on a big hovering platform, so it can be used as a war engine and can be fired in a few different ways. In both cases, the protective sphere is open to release the destructive energy of the ancient stars contained within it. It can be utilized in such a way that it creates a wide area of effect to bombard advancing armies with a ludicrous amount of solar radiation, instantly cutting down an entire force in the blink of an eye. The more potent version of its attacks, however, is when the energy is concentrated into the equivalent of a vicious solar flare.
I see. So it's basically a fusion reactor device, but probably coupled with dimensional technology, which would make sense seeing what Trazyn did with his Pokeballs. So it's basically a fusion reactor, but you don't just have like a ring or whatever where the plasma is heated and where it radiates from, but you basically have almost an entire sun in a pocket dimension in a floating sphere, and you can like funnel the energy out. And so basically you have a sun without having a sun. You know, like you don't have the size of a sun because suns are like our sun is 300 times the size of the Earth, about that, if I don't misremember. So that's pretty big, but you can like shrink that down through dimensional technology like Trazyn probably used. And then you can like do solar flares or solar storms or solar bursts or whatever they're called. And also like radiation and stuff like that. That makes a lot of sense, actually. That's actually pretty cool. I like that a lot.
This attack is said to be strong enough to obliterate any material the energy comes into contact with.
Yeah, of course.
If the containment field ends up suffering a catastrophic failure, then all of that stored energy will be released, causing a massive explosion that will level not just all of the enemy forces in a huge area, but also all of the Necrons that were utilizing the device as well.
How much, though? So it probably depends on how powerful you make your dimensional condensing shield technology or the dimensional warping technology. Like how much bigger the fusion reaction is than what you actually would have at the same space if it weren't for the dimensional technologies. I guess so. Yeah, because the explosion you just showed was a continent. That's not that much. I mean, that's not the power of a sun. I mean, it's much, of course, but like, what is that? Not that much in contrast to what I thought it would do.
Necrons don't really see this as a bad thing, though, as on one hand, it serves as a demonstration of what they're truly capable of, and on the other, it keeps the device from falling into enemy hands. Using the captured power of an ancient star to obliterate your enemies is certainly pretty crazy, but it's not quite as crazy as the next entry on this list.
Okay, but I liked it. This one was very cool, very close to possible, I think. I just think it's too weak what he described. Like with the pictures he showed, it should be more powerful than that if you have a whole sun in there. Because if you have a whole sun in there, like you would just F the planet, like you evaporate it. So, don't know why it doesn't do that. Perhaps it cools too quickly. Perhaps through the dimensional gradient, I'm sorry, I'm nerding out a bit. So through the dimensional gradient, like how would I build it? I would make the spatial dimensions fold and stretch in exponential distances. So I would have like 1 centimeter be 1 centimeter away from the sun, the next centimeter be 2 centimeters away from the sun, the next centimeter be 4, the next centimeter be 8. You know, like the distance I have in real space is not the same. Like you would need a lot of time. I'm sorry, I probably don't make a lot of sense, but so it's probably that the sun can't, like, it cools out before it completely explodes, and that's why it doesn't have a shock wave, I assume. Like if I would have to explain it, that's something I would write in, that it like cools because of the space-time contortions that it uses. I don't know.
Number 8, the Sperenza's black hole cannon.
Yes, we got one finally. Thank fuck. Thank fuck, we've got it. Guys, we've got it. After so many years, I finally see someone actually use a black hole cannon. Like, it's the most sensible thing you can do. Like, it should not be too quick, like, because otherwise it just passes through a planet. Like, if you, like, shoot a black hole with too much velocity, it would obviously not gobble it up. It would, like, just shoot through something, like a intangible line. But if it's slow enough, it can just gobble up a planet. Like, why not do it like that? That's what, like, yeah.
The Sperenza was a ship from the Priest of Mars trilogy and is one of, if not potentially, the largest ships ever created by mankind.
Yeah, probably.
It was described as being the size of a continent, complete with the infrastructure and industry of an entire hive, full of manufactories, refineries, crackling power banks, and gene bays. Its engines were said to be larger than most other starships, and each of its hundreds of void generators and Geller arrays were large enough to shroud an entire frigate by themselves.
Wow.
This thing was so massive that its mass and density created a distorted gravity field equivalent to that of an unstable moon. Although it's designated as an Arch Mechanicus vessel, it was not originally created by the Mechanicus.
Sorry, I brain farted a bit. So it says it's like a continent, and then it would have a gravitational field like the moon. Yes, of course it would, because the moon's like a bit bigger, like if you have a smaller moon than our moon, and if you have a bit bigger continent, like if you have Asia, it would be like the same mass. Obviously, it has that gravitational field. Like, why would that be a surprise? That's not a surprise. That's just a fact. That's how it works. If you have a spaceship that's as big as a continent, basically has the gravity of a moon. Like, yeah, no shit.
They actually discovered it by accident on the Forge world of Palomar. When it was on Earth, the ship was discovered to only be halfway through its construction. Thus, the Mechanicus immediately set to work to complete the ancient vessel. And when it was finally turned on, its machine spirit proved to be so unbelievably powerful that it unleashed a burst scream that destroyed the entire world in a radioactive hellstorm.
Oops.
More so, the machine spirit was able to absorb the machine spirits of every single machine that was destroyed in the explosion, becoming a hyper-advanced Gestalt entity.
What is a Gestalt entity? And it's not Gestalt entity, it's Gestalt entity, because it's German again. And it's from psychology. It is, I don't know which psychologist did it, but it's basically the idea, as far as I know, that certain shapes are characteristic of meanings and functions, which is something that's very likely how the brain works and how cognition works. And I'm doing a lot of research in that area as well. In my that's my main area of research actually. So, but sorry to derail this a bit. So the machine spirits are real weird things. Like, they might be in the warp or whatever, but so they really exist, and they are now combined into this very, very not visceral, tangible thing, like this weird object-like structure that has a mind, perhaps even an AI in it.
Makes the ship so particularly interesting to the community is its largest and most powerful weapon, which was a device that was capable of not only manipulating time, but also creating black holes.
Yeah, so it was a gravity-bending weapon, which is why you create time. Because, like, if you stretch space, like, you compress time, and the other way around. But, yeah, that's basically what it does. And it's like, I mean, if they have warp technology, I assume they already found the unification of gravity and quantum theory. So, yeah. Still needs much energy, I guess. So, yeah.
In the novel Priests of Mars, when it's first fired at a group of Eldari ships, it generates a powerful black hole that crushes everything caught in its blast. What's particularly impressive about this is the black hole actually missed. The Eldar ships that it was firing at were cloaked and were incredibly nimble and able to dodge out of the way. However, they ended up getting caught in its AoE secondary effect that displaced them in the timeline, moving them backwards seconds before they had enacted their evasion protocols. A ship like this suddenly being wrenched back and forth through time caused an enormous amount of damage to it, and with it critically wounded and its cloaking capabilities disabled, the fleet that had been accompanying the Sperenza launched an all-out attack, volley after volley of torpedoes that destroyed it in a spectacular fashion.
That's not how black holes work, though. So it has some magic time mumbo-jumbo again. So the black hole, let me think about it. So the black hole misses, what it still does is contort space and time and stretches it. So, like, I would have understood it if it would have thrown off their navigation computers and stuff like that, and they would have, like, not been able to calculate distances anymore and been, like, flying into each other or stuff like that. But displacing it in time does not make sense with a black hole, because you can't travel backwards in time with black holes. As far as we know, you can just slow it down. So that's all we know that black holes do: slow down time, not travel backwards in time. So don't know. So this is just pure sci-fi, but it's cool. Like, it's probably pretty cool. Like, that would probably make for cool visuals. And I mean, it seems that they really have some more knowledge about space-time. That's why they apparently can also go back in time. And yeah, that works, of course. But yeah, that's also like a black hole. Yes, I would say we know pretty well what black holes do. Of course, we don't know everything, and there's still much to be discovered. But as far as we know, black holes don't send you back in time. They just, like, make time slow down for you if you're too close.
This thing is undoubtedly powerful, and it's no wonder that it's a fan-favorite ship. But when trying to be objective and measure its actual power, we have to use what's been written about it. And in this particular situation, the gun missed, so we didn't really get to see exactly what taking a black hole to the face would do.
You would just be ripped apart. Like, it's like you would just literally be ripped apart. Like, that's literally what would happen. Like, you would get turned into spaghetti. And then you, like, but it's not spaghetti that could be served to like at an Italian restaurant, because you've fallen to the event horizon, probably. Like, that's basically, like, we know that. Like, why would you speculate about what happens when a black hole hits you in the face? Like, you die, you get ripped apart. Like, you get basically stretched to shit. Like, to infinity. Not really to infinity, but a very long distance. And you would just, yeah, like, everything would, like, rip apart. So that's basically what it does. Nothing more. It wouldn't. I would be really interested in what it would do to the warp, though, because we don't know how the warp interacts with the real world, in the sense that, like, we understand today's physics, and we would know what a black hole does, but what does a black hole do in warp? Is there even a black hole in warp? Like, if you travel through the warp, and in real space, like, the warp corridor goes through a black hole, is that a thing? Can that happen? Or is the warp just a completely different plane and it's no issue? You know what I mean? I don't know all of these things, so I can't tell you more. Like, I can't predict what the warp would do because I don't know the lore. So, but I can tell you what science says, so I just did, so.
However, the next weapon that we're going to talk about really couldn't care less if it's on target or not, as if you're within a couple thousand kilometers of it when it goes off, you're probably going to be dead. Number 7, the Nova Cannon.
Does it shoot a supernova? I mean, it's probably a better AOE than a black hole, but yeah. I mean, if you need AOE, you should probably better shoot a supernova than a black hole, because black holes are pretty condensed. I mean, they have gamma rays. I think gamma rays are currently hypothesized or thought of as being produced by black holes, and quasars are basically also black holes, probably. So, like, they burst these things. So that would also be a pretty good way to destroy things with black holes. But yeah.
The Nova Cannons are massive weapons designed to be used exclusively by the battleships of the Imperial Navy, and they're normally mounted on their prow. This is done so the ship's engine can compensate for the enormous amount of recoil generated by the gun.
Oh god, yeah, that must be horrible.
It uses graviometric impellers to accelerate a projectile to a fraction of the speed of light, which in turn implodes at a preset distance after firing, exerting massive amounts of destructive gravitational force on everything caught in the blast radius.
Why? Why would that do that? Why would you make something... He said implode as well. Why would you make something implode that travels at the speed of light? Wouldn't it be more effective if you let it travel at the speed of light and, like, hit it? Perhaps it's shrapnel. Like, it's kind of shrapnel. Yeah, it's probably shrapnel. Like, you want to get shrapnel that is traveling at the speed of light.
The actual projectile that is fired isn't armed until a fraction of a second after it leaves the ship. This gives it enough time to have moved tens of thousands of kilometers away, thus significantly reducing the risk of using such a deadly weapon. The Nova Cannon is capable of delivering widespread destruction in an area of thousands of kilometers, with a practical range of at least 321,000 kilometers, as demonstrated in the novel Dawn of Fire: Avenging Sun.
I just don't get why it has that big of an AoE. Like, it should just be a cone that's getting like bigger. Because I will not go into relativistics that much here, but like, let's say you have, let's take the remote again, because you just have it lying around apparently, and it's now going to explain everything. The remote is going to explain everything to you. No, so if you shoot it like this, like basically this is going to be the project. It's going to be stretched because of it travels at a fast speed. So, but if you implode or explode, it doesn't matter. You would get like a component to this direction, but that's independent of this component, so it would just be a normal explosion. So if you reach 10,000 kilometers with this explosion in this direction, it means the explosion would have done that anyway. Like, it's just this component that is like affected by the acceleration and the relativistic effect. So don't know if that helps you, but that's how it is. So yeah, I guess they also have a pretty big explosive, so it's basically more the explosive that is effective and not the weapon itself. So they use the acceleration more to get it away from the ship, to instantly get it away. It's almost like teleporting a nuke somewhere, like in Stargate. That's probably why they need the high acceleration cannon. And it's not like the kinetic energy they use that does the damage. It's just a weapon that does a lot of damage, and they just want to make sure that it goes off far away from them. And that's why they use this light speed cannon, I guess. So, cool idea, like it. Very, very nicely done. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
The force a Nova Cannon can generate is said to be more potent than a dozen plasma bombs. And although implosion-based ammunition is most commonly used with them, there are variants of Nova Cannon that can fire plasma-based warheads, said to burn with the fury of a small star. Whatever ammunition they use, all Nova Cannons are capable of enormous amounts of destruction, with the potential of eliminating an entire enemy fleet in a single shot.
Yeah, but it's the projectile then, like the way it implodes. It's not the speed of the speed it is being accelerated to. It's what it already is. Like, it's just a very, very big bomb, and they make sure that it doesn't go off in your face.
For how powerful they are, they do have a few drawbacks. First and foremost, during the Grand Crusade, they were considered to be experimental and prone to failures.
Oh no.
Although they did end up seeing a good amount of use during the Horus Heresy. The weapon is unstable, inaccurate, and requires a remarkably stable weapon platform to even be considered for mounting.
Yeah, I can imagine that. One mistake, and because arrows compound, so if you make one small error in the starting conditions, you will get effed in the face. It's probably even that you have to calculate to the quantum level, to very small scales, like a nanometer or an angstrom or something like that, to make sure that it goes into exactly the spot where you want it.
Not to mention,
cool.
It's
Very
practically
realistic.
useless at close range.
Yeah,
Thus,
yeah.
many Imperial Navy captains prefer utilizing more traditional torpedoes.
Very realistic weapon. I love this one. This one's cool. This is really, really cool.
Despite these drawbacks, the Nova Cannon is rightfully feared as one of the most powerful weapons at the Imperium's disposal.
Yeah.
When it comes to weapons of mass destruction within humanity, the Nova Cannon might be incredibly powerful, but it is not nearly as infamous as the next entry on this list.
Which
Number
is
6, Exterminatus.
that's not a weapon. That's a tactic and an event, as far as I know. Though I know what it does. It cracks open the planet's surface, like it does plate tectonics, but in 3D.
For an Inquisitor to initiate the Exterminatus of a world is to condemn billions to death. It is something that is only done in the most extreme of circumstances.
Like when one gene stealer cult appears on a world. I'm not sure. Can you please tell me in the comments how often it really happens? Because the way it was in The Infinite and the Divine, it really, really came off as a joke. Because the book was written very funny, it was pretty fun. Obviously there were catastrophic events happening and stuff, but they took it with some fun, so that made it feel like that. And yeah, it just cracked open the planet. was very well used in that book as well. The way they travel back through time through the layers of the geological layers the planet had after it was cracked open. But I digress. So yeah, how often do they use Exterminatus? Like, I would love to know that. Please tell me in the comments.
When a world is considered to be so far gone that saving it or purifying the corruption that has been allowed to fester on its surface is deemed not only an impossible task, but one that if allowed to continue, could spread to other planets throughout the system. Many people who are new to Warhammer 40K tend to ask why Exterminatus isn't used more frequently, as it seems like a pretty good tool for bringing the Emperor's divine wrath against the heretics.
Yeah, but you want to assimilate as well, and you need resources. Like, if you have a planet, gonna get resources. What are you gonna do?
The reality is that planets are incredibly valuable, and 9 times out of 10, its complete and utter annihilation is seen as a grievous waste.
Like I said.
During the days of the Great Crusade, and even now in the 42nd millennium, the Imperium would much rather capture a planet and thus gain control of all of its resources, rather than making it completely uninhabitable. There are, however, times when such a positive outcome is simply not on the table.
Yeah, this was just a nuke, I think. Anyway, I would also say it's very hard to calculate. Like, they really have to calculate their potential losses in military strength and vehicles and like manpower and stuff like that against what losing the planet's resources would cost. Because planets also, as far as I know, some of the resources are regenerative, like on the scale we are moving on here, so yeah.
Exterminatus can only be ordered by those with extreme authority, such as an Inquisitor, a Space Marine Chapter Master, a Lord High Admiral, or a Lord Commander. And they all have different methods of doing this. There is no singular Exterminatus gun. Some forms of Exterminatus include that of the cyclonic torpedoes, which scour a world's surface with nucleonic fire or raw plasma, which subsequently burns away a planet's atmosphere in a storm of fire that causes its oceans to boil to vapor and the surface to be left as barren rock.
That's a cool way of doing it. They thought of that, by the way. They were afraid of that when they ignited the first... It was either the first hydrogen bomb or the first nuclear bomb. They were afraid of igniting the atmosphere. And they were not sure if it would ignite the atmosphere, and they still fired the fucking bomb. It's like, for science, man, I just don't know. So yeah, but like, they obviously have technology like this, like burning away the atmosphere of a planet. Such a brilliant move of like, it destroys the surface, but you still have all the minerals and stuff like that. Some might be, like, depending on what you use, they might be irradiated, because you've probably got gamma radiation at least, which is basically very high energy rays. I guess that's something they would create here. So yeah, it's probably the best way. Like, why crack open the planet literally? Like, why not like wipe off the surface and go like digging?
There's also the Mortalis atmospheric missiles that cover the entire surface of a world in an irradiated firestorm of one of the most dreaded weapons ever created, Phosphex, 40K's equivalent of super napalm. An extremely deadly and terrifying incendiary weapon, viewed even by the Imperium to be considered a war crime, even when only used as a traditional hand flamer.
Yeah, Geneva Convention says hello. Probably is already gone though.
Let alone something capable of consuming an entire world. Phosphex residue is incredibly radioactive, thus once its flames finally die out, the planet will be rendered completely uninhabitable. Then finally there's the terrifying virus bombs, which contain within them the dreaded Life Eater virus. Once unleashed, the virus clouds are capable of quickly spreading across the entire surface of a planet in minutes. The particles are so tiny that they can penetrate power armor and rebreathers. Whatever organic creature comes into contact with the virus will quickly begin to rot and break down into sludge. Plants, animals, or people, everything immediately begins to decay. The scariest part about this is that if someone was able to survive this initial virus wave, they won't last much longer.
Why?
As the breakdown of all of that organic matter on a planet all at once releases an inconceivable amount of flammable gas into the atmosphere.
And carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, probably, because we basically consists mainly of carbon atoms, like organic materials, you probably know that. But so it would probably be a lot of carbon in the atmosphere that's just effing everything. So basically, I might have misunderstood that, but it sounds as if they use nanites to transport little virus seeds, so to speak, to seed the virus, and then it like mutates rapidly. Probably takes energy from its host as well to multiply and like just rot everything away. Because rotting away is like basic. It sounds a lot like an entropic overkill, something like that. Like the entropy is used a lot to like make things like just die, which is pretty harrowing, and I love it. I love that. That's so cool. And I've heard that before. The virus bomb is something I heard before. It was either in the Horus Hersey reaction I did, or it was in something else, but I don't remember. I think it was during the Horus Hersey. Didn't the word bearers use it? Or was it used against them? I might be completely wrong, but...
which will eventually ignite on its own, or one of the ships in orbit will set it off with an incendiary device. Once that spark goes off, the gas will combust into a voracious firestorm that sears everything on the planet's surface to bare rock, as well as burning away all of its oxygen. In the 42nd millennium, cyclonic torpedoes are by far the most common form of Exterminatus, but the other two I mentioned do still pop up in the lore from time to time, especially if you're reading about the Horus Heresy. Whatever form it takes, Exterminatus very seldomly leaves behind any survivors, and is only done in the most extreme of circumstances. There's a great quote from an Inquisitor talking about Exterminatus that I want to share for you, as it's probably the most 40K thing I've ever heard.
Yes, please.
Some may question your right to destroy 10 billion people. Those who understand know that you have no right to let them live.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is... wow. What a brilliant line. That's well picked, Wes. That's well picked. That's nice. I love that one. Yeah. That is... wow. That like caught me off guard. That's brilliant writing. That is brilliant writing. Yeah. Yeah, very good. Very good. Though I still don't know what the planet cracking thing was from Infinite and Divine. So, yeah.
Whereas Exterminatus is rightfully feared for its ability to kill every living thing on a planet, the next thing we're going to talk about
Except
is kill
Necrons.
the planet itself. Number 5. The Armageddon Gun of the Planet Killer. Although its name is pretty self-explanatory, the ship known as the Planet Killer is anything but ordinary.
What would I do to do that? I would probably infuse the planet's core with too much energy somehow and make it blow up. Let's see what they do.
The ship is absolutely bristling with long-range lances, weapon batteries, and torpedo launchers, but its real claim to fame is its main weapon known as the Armageddon Gun, so named for its ability to single-handedly bring death to a planet. This energy cannon of immeasurable magnitude is impossibly powerful and is capable of outputting a beam of ludicrously destructive energy that can be sustained for over half an hour.
Ludicrous kill. Master kill. Holy shit. Okay. You probably are too young to know that reference.
The concentrating plasma sears through miles of planetary crust.
Probably not. If you have been with Warhammer 40K from the beginning, you definitely know what I'm talking about because it was those years away. Well, anyway.
Right into the world's mantle, gouging out a continent-sized wound. A planet hit by an attack from this thing is thrown out of its natural orbit, causing it to flip on its axis and eventually collapse into itself.
Why would it collapse into itself? I don't get that part. Like, I get why it would be pushed away, and I get why it would change direction of rotation, because the angular momentum and momentum of the beam are, like, so to speak, imprinted onto the planet. So, of course, like, because you might know, and if you don't, I will now tell you, like, light has momentum, and it's basically... Though like photons, which are portions of energy, they can, like, they are basically carrying momentum as well. So if you get hit by a laser or whatever, you actually get momentum. Like, they did this experiment in 1920s. I don't know. I think it was 1920s. So they basically had this little oven, and there was a stream of I don't know what. I think it was natrium atoms or helium atoms, something like that, and they like let them fly through certain mechanisms to make it like a ray. So they had a ray of, or was it mercury? It might have been mercury. So anyway, these atoms were like going onto a screen, and then they just shone a laser into it, like from the side, or a light source. I think they didn't. No, they didn't have lasers then, but they shone a light source from the side, and it like changed the direction the atoms took, even though there was no particle there. And that's why they got the idea as well, or like that was evidence that supported the hypothesis that light has particle-like characteristics. Though it was not the first experiment that did that, but it's a very visceral one. So long story short, so if you have a very, very powerful energy beam, I mean, they might also shoot plasma. I don't know what they shoot. But even if they just shoot energy that's highly concentrated, it would also like carry the momentum and imprint it onto the planet and like make it tilt and move away like as if it was like struck by a very, very strong other force. And yeah, so basically that seems logical, but why does it implode? I don't get that part. Why does it implode? Why doesn't it explode? I mean, wouldn't you like put too much energy into the core and wouldn't it then expand or something? Because the only way a planet can implode, and I might be wrong on this, I think it is by cooling. Like if the core cooled down too quickly, and like then it would like squish together, I guess. So it doesn't. I mean, it obviously doesn't cool the core. So why would it implode? Questions over questions.
The first time we ever saw this thing was in the original Battlefleet Gothic tabletop game. Its original description said that the Imperium had no idea how Abaddon was capable of constructing such a vessel. Everything about it just didn't make sense. It didn't match any known patterns of ships, and based on its construction, could only logically have been created within the Eye of Terror. However, in the 8th edition Chaos Space Marine Codex, we learned that Abaddon discovered an ancient shipyard drifting through the warp, and amongst its rusting gantries and crumbling manufactorum towers, he discovered a half-constructed vessel that was as vast in scale as it was terrible in design.
Okay, so it was a leftover from a time-long past as well. And by the way, again, obviously I'm coming from today's physics, not from sci-fi physics, but I hope you still find this a bit useful and interesting, I don't know. Otherwise, you probably are not even here anymore. If you're here and you're still, please make sure to like and subscribe if you're not. And comment, like I said, like here, and comment on what you think about this.
He was awestruck by its dark majesty and immediately set his warpsmiths to the task of completing it. For a time, this would become Abaddon's flagship during the Gothic War, and was responsible for the destruction of Savaven, where its fearsome weaponry burned the sky and split continents apart, killing 14 billion people within an hour. There was another instance where he used it to destroy the 3 moons of the planet Stranavar.
Why didn't he like them? Were they like... the moons had a face like our moon does, and the faces frowned, and he didn't like that. That's why he blew them up. Because he could.
The moons were blasted apart, and the resulting debris rained down on the planet in an apocalyptic storm that obliterated everything on its surface.
That's effective.
Although the ship was believed to have been destroyed, it would make one brief appearance in Imperial Nihilus in the 8th edition campaign supplement Vigilus Ablaze. The lore unfortunately goes dark after this, and the current whereabouts of the planet killer are unknown.
That might be a cool goodie or objective for a storyline. To find it, to stop it, to like repurpose it or something. Like perhaps you could try to make it fire so that it hurts chaos stuff, and then you could like park it in front of the Eye of Terror or something. Like that could be an objective you could introduce as a writer. I'm just spitballing here a bit, but yeah, I like that. So it's still out there. That's cool. So it's not destroyed.
Not to take anything away from the planet killer, as being able to destroy an entire world with 30 minutes of continuous fire is certainly an impressive feat, but the next thing we're going to talk about can kill a world instantaneously from multiple light years away.
Oh wow.
Number 4. The gravidic trebuchet. The gravidic trebuchet was a weapon featured in the novel The Twice Dead King, Reign, described as a Necron superweapon from the days of the War in Heaven.
Okay, I still have to read that book, and I want to read that book. I love Necron books. I think. I only read one. What do I know? But I mean, I hope it doesn't spoil too much now.
That was commissioned by an ancient pharaoh of the Mefrit dynasty. It was a defensive engine that was designed to accelerate asteroids at superluminal speed, and was capable of annihilating the most fiercely fortified targets from light years away. At some point during the War in Heaven, the pharaoh that owned the device was slain along with its keepers, and thus the weapon fell into dormancy. But one of the Necrons in the story claims that he remembers its location, as it was his void mines that were used to detonate the asteroids in order to gather the materials needed to create the device. It's neither here nor there, but I thought it was funny. The only reason this device is even mentioned in this book is that the Necrons are currently being pursued by a group of space marines, and despite their superior technology, they don't have the resources to outrun them forever, and they know they will eventually be destroyed.
Are we Last Jediing this?
In super pretentious and dismissive Necron fashion, Altex, the main character of the story, hears about this equivalent of a god weapon and basically shrugs it off, saying that yeah, that would be super cool and all if I was annoyed by some frivolous target multiple light years away from here, but I'm not. I have space marines directly behind my fleet. The cryptech who tells him about this says that he failed to explain what he really meant. If they could get to the device, they could use their own ships as ammunition in order to instantaneously escape.
Oh, I like that. So it's basically like a super slingshot cannon or whatever to make them run faster. Oh, that's very creative though. Why?
It's a terrible idea, but they don't really have a lot of options. I won't go into spoilers for this book,
Thank you.
Quite frankly, it's the best Necron book ever written.
Ah, wow, that's a high claim, my friend. That's a high claim, my friend. I've read The Infinite and Divine, and it was brilliant writing, so that I will tell you after I read it how if I thought it was better, but that hypes me up though.
Even more so than The Infinite and the Divine.
Okay, mate. Now you piqued my. You had my interest, but now you have my attention. Nah, he always had my attention.
Really want to take a minute to examine just how powerful this thing is. But before I try to get into it, I'm no physicist, as many of you know. And
let's go, my friend. Let's see how good you do.
math is definitely not my strong suit, but I'm aware from having read things on the internet that the only thing that can travel the speed of light is stuff that doesn't have mass.
Yes, that's true, as far as we know. Save for if we space-time bend.
For anything that does have mass, it's an impossibility as far as we know. But
yeah,
we're dealing with Warhammer 40K and space magic and all kinds of wacky stuff. If an asteroid was to strike the planet traveling even nearly the speed of light, the devastation would be absolutely unthinkable.
Yeah.
So much so that no computer exists today that can accurately simulate what it would look like if it was going even faster.
That's not correct. It couldn't do that because it's not like it's prohibited by physics. It's basically the same. Like if you would say from current physics, if you would say something travels faster than the speed of light, it would be the same as saying 2 + 2 = 5. Like it just doesn't work. Like it is not a matter of computers not being able to simulate it. It's just that the math tells you it's impossible, which just says the theory we have describing this says it's impossible. So either it's really impossible or we need a new theory, which people try to get by unifying theories and stuff. But I would say, so how would I fan wank this to make it fit with current day physics? I would say it creates a warp bubble, a space-time distortion, because obviously Necrons have that if they have space-time technology, like with the archaeonic device they showed here as well, like he showed here in the beginning, and as well like the Pokeball technology. So they are able to bend space-time, and they probably use that in their drives as well. So like you bend space-time and you make it like through warp, you can accelerate things theoretically faster than the speed of light, relatively speaking. So like you put it in a warp bubble, you fly it like there with such a speed that you can't detect it, and you don't use something. Yeah, like that's the idea, I guess, from the supraluminal speed or whatever you said, that you can't detect it because you can only detect things from because things just expand with the speed of light. and they can't expand further because information can't travel further. So if you use this warp bubble, it's like a life hack to make it travel faster, and you can't detect it. So you're not if you don't know that they shot it, you would, and you don't travel through the warp, you would not be able to even know that it comes. And with the warp bubble, I don't mean the warp they have here, not the immaterium. I mean the warp from physics, like the space-time distortion warp. And then they could like, shortly before it hits the planet, you could then make the warp bubble burst, so to speak, figuratively speaking, of course. Like, this is a lot more complicated than I'm making it out, but like, I try to give you an image in your head to think about it a bit more vividly, perhaps. So you would burst the warp bubble, and it still is at almost the speed of light, and then you have the normal calculation when it enters normal space again, and then it hits the surface, and then it does all that shit here.
To put things in perspective, the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs millions of years ago was believed to have been traveling at speeds of around 19 to 27 kilometers per second.
Yeah, there are some that go 36 kilometers per second and quicker, but that's basically it. And most asteroids, by the way, are filtered away by the asteroid belt, and that's through Jupiter, because Jupiter is very massive. But I digress. Yes. So of course it would wipe completely. If you have an asteroid of 6 kilometers mass and you accelerate it with the speed of light and it hits a planet, it will probably go through the planet and fly, keep flying, but the planet, the impact will just burst it, I guess. I would have to think about that more. I've never thought about what it would do. But you basically deposit so much energy into the planet's core or surface that it overloads and bursts out, I guess. But that's more hypothesizing. It's not what I know, it's just what I would assume.
The speed of light, however, is 300,000 kilometers per second. If something just 1% of the speed of light impacted the Earth, the devastation would be far greater. The crater it left would be enormous, and the resulting dust cloud would choke all life on the planet, killing untold billions of living creatures. At 10% of the speed of light, it would wound the Earth so severely that the mantle would crack open and flood the surface with magma, turning the Earth into a giant fireball. If something traveling 99.9999999% the speed of light hit the Earth, it would travel clean through to the core. This would generate an expanding cloud of plasma and radiation around the entry point that rips outward through the body of the planet, the entire backside of the planet expanding outward in an incandescent cloud.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's basically it. It will probably pass through, and through that it deposits energy like this. You probably know these videos about people shooting guns into what's it called? This weird gem-like stuff. I'm sorry, you know what I mean. And then you see these trails, something like that. Only that it starts to expand more and blows out of everything. Yeah, and that as well, because it goes out, it will probably take stuff with it, because again the momentum is deposited as well in collisions, and though that would be pretty interesting to run simulations on, what would it do. I think there's a computer application or software or program, whatever you say, that can simulate stuff like this. I think I've seen that somewhere on YouTube, but I don't know which one it is. If you know it, tell me. I would love to simulate this. That would be fun, but yeah.
The meteor, as well as all of the particles it generated, would rip through the body of the planet, superheating it to the point that it glows brighter than the sun. The momentum would be so unconceivably great that it would send the Earth spiraling out of orbit. But that's little to no consequence at this point, as the Earth doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore. And I don't know, it would probably be, because that's the thing, it would probably... I don't know, and I really don't know. If you shoot it in too quickly, would it still? Because the wait. It would only deposit the momentum in the direction it shoots in. If it shoots into this direction, the momentum is also just this. In this axis, it's high. In these axes, there is no momentum, so there will be no momentum. The Earth will not. I'm so sorry. Let's take this controller. This is the Earth. I'm sorry. This is the Earth. So we have the momentum going in here. So it would only be what would you say? Deposited, whatever, in this direction. Like it won't move like this. It won't move like this or like this. It will only move like this. It will probably only be the little like the surface area that it hits on, and that like. Imagine that as a rod in the planet, that would move. And like there would be a little trail that like expands a bit, but yeah, it's probably like it's basically you like hit a rod out of the earth that flies into the distance pretty quickly, and it also would like explode the earth simultaneously. And you know what? To sum it up, Earth would be dead and fucked. So, anyway, lecture over.
The energy deposited is 10,000 times greater than the planet's gravitational binding energy.
Yeah,
and everything that ever was of the Earth is blown into an expanding cloud of plasma.
And it's not that big. Like the gravity binding energy or whatever he just said. Like the gravitational energy, like the potential energy of the Earth that you have here is not that big. Like it's pretty good, but there are others that are a lot bigger. So
out into space, causing the sun to emit massive solar flares as it absorbs the waves of dust. And Mars and Venus are completely scoured clean by the waves of incredibly high energy plasma.
No. I don't even think so, because I think the Earth would just like spread like this, and because Venus and Mars are pretty small and pretty far away, the interaction probability is pretty small, even if it like spreads out in a cone. Like if Earth explodes into this cone, like this outward into this cone, the cone still would have to hit those, because again the momentum is only deposited in one direction, I guess mainly. But yeah, as I said, this would be fun to simulate. I might be wrong, but because it doesn't like expand into every direction probably.
And again, that's only traveling nearly the speed of light. Something moving superluminally, as in multiple times the speed
we don't
of
need
light,
to talk about that.
is so impossible based on what we know of physics that we have no way of knowing what that would actually look like.
Yeah, I can guarantee you it's something like classical, what we in physics would call warp bubble. That's what it is. Because Necron like have shenanigans with space-time, so it would fit. So I assume that's it. And it is technically superluminal speed, but it's not. Like it's not like this. It's not in our space-time. So yeah, I guess that's probably the key that he missed here, which is completely fine. And I'm fan wanking here like I've never done before to make it fit because I love it. But yeah.
But I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that it would be really, really bad. It's probably a good thing that the one in the story ends up getting destroyed. But doomsday weapons like this were commonplace during the War in Heaven. By the way,
sorry to this one really, because this is, I can explain and understand a lot of stuff about this theoretically. So you also have the same problem as, not on the same scale, but the same one you had with a Nova cannon, because you still have to take aim and shoot, and you have to be very precise. Like there can be no error, otherwise you will just miss. Like hitting a planet, that is pretty hard. Like that is really hard to do. Like how? Like do you know how small it is? Like on a distance, like almost impossible. I know they have technology, but if you accelerate it and then let it fly, so to speak, you can't control it after that. So yeah, I don't know. They probably need Necron computational powers for that, to calculate that. They will have, they need astromancers. Yes, that makes sense as well. Wow. This is so well written. They're called astromancers, right? What Orrery was. And they can feel like the gravity of the stars and stuff like that to make calculations and predictions. That's what you need here to fire it. Brilliant writing. I love it. Great design. Fits the Necron. This one is good as well. I love this one. Okay, anyway.
and it's very possible that another gravidic trebuchet still exists somewhere out there. This thing, without a doubt, is one of the most powerful weapons to have ever existed in the grimdark future.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we've never actually seen it used in the lore. We just know that it exists and kind of have to take the Necrons at their word. However, the next entry on this list, without a doubt, has demonstrated the ability to kill entire star systems.
Oh,
Number
wow.
3. The warp cannons of a Blackstone fortress.
Now we're talking. This one I've heard before.
The legendary Blackstone fortresses are a vast and dark construct of unknown origin, created with a technological mastery possessed by none of the sentient races alive today.
Wow, that's creepy. I hope... I've thought about it, by the way, for a long time now. Something that is missing is a race before the... not even a race, a mind or an event or an entity, something that is all of that and nothing that existed before the great ones, the great old ones. Some mysterious thing that only exists in very, very, very small remnants that are powerful and like radiating with knowledge and advancement and progress and something like that. Because that's always something that you can like sprinkle into a story or universe and have them find remnants, and then I don't know. You know, that I would love that as well, and perhaps this is something like that.
But who built the Blackstone fortresses and for what purpose is unknown, though rumors abound that they were a creation of the Old Ones or possibly even the Necrons during the War in Heaven. When
before
brought online, the capabilities of a Blackstone fortress are almost unbelievable. They're able to travel through the void with no obvious means of propulsion and seem to be able to ignore the laws of inertia. They are heavily shielded and armored, more so than even the sturdiest of battleships, and their weaponry is capable of harnessing the powers of the warp into a devastating offense.
Yeah, this really sounds like this mysterious old technology, because this clearly defines the laws of physics and what I like, the known laws of physics. But what I really like here, I get the vibe that that's completely wanted. It's something that behaves in a way that implies laws and things beyond our understanding. And it's made for that, and it's weird, and it's alien and ancient, and I love it.
Although many of them have
And it looks like a Quincy cross.
been claimed by the Imperium and the forces of chaos over the millennia.
It
was
has
only
four,
Abaddon
but-
the Despoiler who was able to unlock their potential and use them the way they were intended to, whereas the ones controlled by the Imperium were just repurposed into space stations. It was the destructive capabilities of a Blackstone fortress that was responsible for the splitting of the galaxy in half when Abaddon threw one that had been disabled, like a meteor at the fortress world of Cadia.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that fits. Like, it changed the laws of physics in the galaxy, basically, because it made the warp come in. And it might have, yeah, like, this will be my headcanon now. It might be completely wrong. So, and again, I'm now nerding a bit. And you probably already know this, but there are certain constants of nature. And perhaps this thing was able to change some in some places, like in where the rift is. And that's why the warp was more easily invading there. That might not be, perhaps we know how it happened, but that would be my assumption, because the vibe I get from these shit things, I love them, by the way. I love this stuff. So I really have the feeling that these things are like able to rewrite laws of physics, and I might misunderstand this, but that's basically what I think. And when it exploded, it like had this ripple effect that changed natural constants a bit, perhaps even. And perhaps there are natural constants that are responsible for warp coupling with our reality, like the coupling of materium and immaterium. Perhaps there are like natural constants as well. And this was so advanced that it changed them a bit along the rib in the galaxy. And that's why everything happened. But tell me what if you know more, and if this is stupid, but that might be. But that's just what I would assume from not knowing anything.
There is enough lore on these things to fill an entire dedicated video and then some. So for the sake of keeping this simple, as this is just supposed to be a top 10 list, we're going to focus on its most powerful weapon. The main gun they are equipped with is known as a warp cannon, a device capable of ripping a hole in the fabric of reality, ushering forth the deadly energies of the warp. The gun was said to
Yeah, this sounds exactly like that. The gun can probably do that as well. Like it can rewrite reality and the laws of physics and the warp and make their coupling different and make it easier for the warp to breach.
Be powerful enough to destroy planets outright, let alone rip apart enemy fleets.
It's sorry I want to give you an example of what I mean to make it perhaps more understandable. So let's say you have this giant lake, and you've got a dam in the lake, and the dam is like 100 meters wide, and that just barely holds the pressure of the lake. And the cannon does make it so that concrete is like paper. So suddenly the whole thing floods in. That's basically what I think it does. But of course, if there's a lot more stuff, and I'm just being an idiot here, but that's what I would assume anyway.
At one point, the despoiler attacked the Tarantus system on the edge of the Gothic sector. He used 3 of the Blackstone fortresses, as well as his accompanying Chaos fleet, to sweep aside the few Imperial ships that were close to where they broke from the warp. Imperial ships from the surrounding area moved to intercept, but Abaddon's fleet engaged them, buying enough time for the Blackstone fortresses to move into position. They combined the power of all 3 of them into a single massive energy wave targeted at Tarantus' star. With their objective complete, the Chaos ships and the Blackstone fortresses retreated and jumped back into the warp. Now, the effects of the attack weren't immediately noticeable, until the star began to rage and boil. For an entire month, it emitted tortured storms that moved across its surface as its corona expanded to engulf the 2 nearest worlds. Many would attempt to flee the system, but the complete evacuation of 3 worlds in such a short period of time proved to be an impossible task.
Did it birth the Satan? Was that how the Satan were created? Perhaps this didn't birth one. I don't think it did, but perhaps it's just an association I got in my head right now. But it's a question to you: is that possible? Is this ancient civilization that might have existed that built these things? Because they used it here on the star, it might have been not used correctly and not at full power. So perhaps it created life by fusing a star with the warp, and that might have been the first Satan. Just an idea, might not be.
4 weeks after the attack, Tarantus' star went supernova, destroying everything in thousands of billions of miles in every direction in a storm of gas and plasma. The entire star system was destroyed. Fun fact about these things.
Wow, that's so cool. By the way, that's so creepy as well. Like imagine that there's this armada coming, firing into your sun, they piss off again and nothing happens, and suddenly all of that happens, so.
When the Blackstone fortresses were originally introduced to the Battlefleet Gothic tabletop game, the designers said that they were leaving, and I shit you not, this is what it was actually called, the Super Mega Death Shot out of the rules, as they had no idea how to even begin to calculate what 3 Blackstone fortresses would be capable of in the tabletop game.
And are they meant to be used in 4s or 5s and not in 3s perhaps? And that's why they didn't create a Satan here? But just like it was a, what would you say, a misbirth or whatever it's called. That's why it exploded. They didn't have enough fortresses. You need 4 and they used 3, and that's why the Satan wasn't born. But like it was a terrible accident, so to speak, of creation. And oh man, that would be so dark.
They did eventually come out with rules for it where it did an enormous amount of damage and extended the range and damage based on the more Blackstone fortresses you were using in the combined attack. But I always just thought it was really funny that the designers were just sitting there scratching their heads like, yeah, we have no idea what to do with this. It's too powerful. The Blackstone fortresses are one of the coolest things in all of 40K, and I'll do more in-depth coverage on them in the future.
Yeah, so I probably am very wrong on many things about these, because I don't have the lore knowledge here. But there are many cool ideas I got today from this alone, and even if they're all shit and rubbish, I still really like that it made me think this much, because I love the concept. This, for me, is a brilliant concept. I love this.
But even as powerful as 3 of them combined is, they're nothing compared to the next thing on this list. Number 2. the celestial orrery.
Ooh.
I feel like every single time I talk about the Necrons, somehow the conversation always leads back to the celestial orrery. So since I've covered this thing pretty extensively in the past, I'm going to keep it brief, as I know exactly what will happen in the comment section if I don't at least mention this thing, and needless to say, it won't go well for me.
I seem to remember having heard about that, but I might be mistaken.
But in a twist, I've recently been reading about a device that I think may be even more powerful, but we'll get to that in a minute. At its core, the Celestial Orrery is a giant holographic map of the known galaxy that updates in real time. It's controlled by a single Necron dynasty known as the Orrery dynasty, who has completely dedicated themselves to its protection.
Probably works through entanglement as well, but a different form from what we know today. But it perhaps similar. Otherwise, you couldn't update it in real time.
And that's because this thing isn't just a big fancy map. It's plugged into the universe so mysteriously and completely that if somebody using the device wished, they could tap on one of the countless stars represented in its holographic matrix and cause the corresponding star in real space to supernova, condemning the untold billions living within its system to a fiery demise.
Yeah, this seems like a very highly advanced version of the holographic theory combined with entanglement, perhaps. And of course, this is not in like something like this would not be possible from today's physics, because the terms I just threw around, so to speak, are not as mysterious as they might seem in sci-fi and might not be as powerful and potent. Like, for example, a quantum computer, there are many misconceptions about that. But, and I actually talked about that with some people who develop quantum computers currently. That's why I was late, by the way. That's why I was, and I think I told you before, but that's why I was not here last week and did not do a video, because I was looking at the quantum computer and some other stuff there they did. But yeah, so, but I digress again, sorry. This seems a lot like holographic theory of the universe as a black hole, and like there's a mapping of points in the universe to points in this orrery, or perhaps even something like universe is a simulation and they can access part of it or whatever, you know. There are many possibilities here, but the idea of it is very cool, and there is a link between the things shown and the things happening from what he says, at least. So that's very cool, and I wonder what is behind that. It might be like there's clearly a link, and you might break that link, and if the link breaks, you probably break like laws of physics again or something like that, and that's why it goes nova or whatever. So anyway, long story short, that's what I think about it.
Doing such a thing is a decision not to be taken lightly, as the ramification on future events are unquantifiable. Every time it's used, the timeline fundamentally alters, causing an enormous amount of damage in the fabric of reality, as well as creating chains of critical reactions.
Here again, he speaks of this timeline all the time. I don't know what he means by that, because from what I know, it's more like, and what I think he means, and I might be wrong, is that he says like things the astromancers, for example, predict are like the real timeline, and that can change through anomalies. And if this is used, obviously, gravity is missing somewhere, so you can't calculate it anymore. And stuff like that, perhaps. Perhaps that's it. But correct me if I'm wrong, of course, as always.
The Necrons who guard the orrery understand enough to know that this thing should never be used in such a way, except for in the most dire of circumstances. Not even the preservation of their own species is something that necessarily warrants the orrery's power.
So why do they have it? How did they get it?
Primarily use the device only for scrying purposes or to trim and pluck certain undesirable elements out of the galaxy. Now, considering they allow chaos to continue to exist and have not interfered in the countless genocidal campaigns of the lesser races, we can only imagine what horrifying entities or abnormalities they consider worthy of pruning.
Wow, yeah, that's scary as well. And by the way, that wouldn't damage the warp, because the warp, like this seems to be linked to the materium only. And I'm not sure, like, does it affect the warp then? Does anyone know? Or would that even be something Chaos would like to get its hands on?
They view themselves as gardeners of
No, they wouldn't, because if the universe is destroyed, obviously the warp entities are as well destroyed because they feed on the materium. So scratch that idea.
creation and treat the Milky Way like a giant bonsai tree. And even though this thing is truly a terrifying construct, perhaps we should be thankful that it exists and such a level-headed group of individuals is controlling it. If it was ever to fall into the wrong hands, be those hands Chaos, Human, Orc, Eldar, or even a more vengeful group of Necrons, the resulting destruction to the galaxy would be unthinkable.
Yeah, but where is it? How did they get it? Who built it? And yeah, by the way, Necrons are so cool. I like that they are like logical in a way that you could perhaps even trust them with that. Could. I'm not sure if you should, but there could be arguments made for that, but not for other races, I guess. I agree with him here, so very cool concept.
But despite everything I just told you, there is still something else in Warhammer that is even more powerful.
The moment. Galaxy Eater.
Number 1. The Breath of the Gods.
Okay.
In the 38th millennium, there was a radical magos of the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Are they just building a moon? Okay. Forges of Mars series spoilers. Okay, I will spoil myself. I will read that as well, but I want to know what it is.
Known as Telok. He had heard legends of an ancient god machine that had the ability to fundamentally alter the fabric of reality, a creation that could birth entirely new solar systems. He would end up launching a crusade to find the device, but eventually all communication with his fleet ceased. Magos was believed to have been killed and to have never actually found it. However, that would prove not to be the case, as he did in fact discover the engine, and in researching it, he would begin to descend into madness. Word was eventually received many centuries later that he had in fact succeeded, and a new crusade was launched to find him and this legendary device.
Yeah, it was probably, perhaps it poisoned the machine spirit because it was so advanced and alien that it infected it or something. Some shit like that, I guess.
You see, the Breath of the Gods was a Catan device developed during the War in Heaven, built around a captured Catan shard that had the disturbing ability to drain power from not just the stars in the current day, but also siphon it from stars in the future and the past as well, draining dozens of them simultaneously.
Yeah, I will not comment on the time stuff again. I've made my point there, I think, but I would love to read about that. That sounds interesting. I want to know how they exactly realize that concept, what it exactly means.
It could use this harnessed power to accomplish staggering feats of temporal engineering that defied all known laws of the universe. Not only did it exist as an unlimited source of energy, but that energy could be used to create new stars, planetary systems, and potentially at its most powerful, even other galaxies. Although never intended to be used in such a way, its power was so complete that if used as a weapon and pushed to its extremes, its destructive power was simply on an incomprehensible scale. The consequences for its use were incredibly severe. All manner of spatial anomalies would begin to open up, stars would die before their time, and others would fail to ignite. The amount of damage somebody could do by causing a star to supernova millions of years before its time, whether in the past or the future, is kind of hard to even imagine.
Yeah, this again sounds a bit like it would work if you say if you don't travel through the warp, then it would work. Like, you know, this star I see, like you see the stars as they were billions of years ago sometimes. Nah, millions of years ago, not billions. I'm shitting here. Millions of years ago, some of them. Like, I mean, there are stars that are 4 years old that you see, like Alpha Centauri is 4 years old if you look at it. But so if a star, so you know when a star explodes, but nah, it doesn't work. I have no clue. I thought I got it. I didn't get it. I will cut this out. Me being an idiot. I will. No. You will see it in all its glory, my foolishness, whatever. But yeah, that's interesting. It's basically the Blackstone fortresses on a much bigger scale. But why would a stun shard have this much power? Oh no. Was it built by this old civilization that also built the Blackstone fortresses? And they really did create the Satan, and they just used them as batteries, and that's why this thing works the way it does. It's not that the Satan was special, the Satan shard, but it's just the way they were supposed to, like, that's what they were They were slaves to this old razor's batteries, and this is the only thing left. Oh, that would be so stupidly cool, but probably also not the case. Though that would explain a lot, though.
It's believed that the device was responsible for the creation of the Halo Scar, a benighted and mysterious region of space that swallowed up any ships that dared to venture into its depths.
Yeah, because the laws of physics are wonky there, probably.
This was an engine created for beings that were anathema to life by a servitor race compelled to feed their monstrous appetite. The Catan were known to be gluttonous gods that fed upon stars, and thus the breath of the gods would have streamlined this process for them, allowing them to consume at a much faster rate.
Oh, holy shit, that's scary. Oh, that is so scary. What is that? I know it's just an image. Oh, that is so scary. I don't know why this is freaking me out so much. It's a nebula. Like it's essential nebulating stuff. Oh god, this is so freaky. I love it. This is true cosmic horror. Whoever did this picture, man, you're so awesome, or woman, you're so awesome.
This was a machine that violated the laws of space-time in unspeakable ways
and
defied everything we know of reality. Through the use of the machine, the Mad Magos was able to bring life to an entire star system and even create the Forge world of Ex Nihilo. At one point in the story, we get to see
Ex Nihilo. Aus dem... Sorry, that was my German slipping through because I'm tired. From nothingness.
Just how destructive this thing can be, as its misuse causes the Forge world it is on to begin to tear itself apart, a black hole forming in its place. And Eldar in the story sees all of the different skeins of the future collapsing into this temporal anomaly, and then she has a vision of what is to come. A shadow rose up to envelop B'Elanna, shockingly sudden and suffocatingly intense in its darkness. Like a veil of black velvet had been drawn across her skein. She saw the sky blacken as the terminus of every thread came into view, unraveling toward extinction with horrifying speed. The end of all things. An impossible boundary and what should be infinite space. B'Elanna gasped, her chest constricting at the sight. This was the doom she had seen ensconced within the Sperenza. Space and time were coming undone, ripping apart like the solar sails of a wounded race ship. Doom had come to this world, but that was the least of the danger. The rift beginning here was pulling wider with every passing second, drawing every thread within the skein to it. Like a weaver's shuttle reversing through the warp and weft of a loom, the future was unraveling to its omega point. Ex Nihilo was becoming the temporal equivalent of a black hole, a howling abyss in which no time would ever exist again. Its effects were yet confined to the depths of the planet, but B'Elanna felt the catastrophic geomantic damage that the HUD had wreaked racing to the surface.
What the fuck?
The physical death of Ex Nihilo was nothing, but the temporal shockwaves would spread into the galactic void of space, reaching into the galaxy of B'Elanna's kin. It would be a slow death for the galaxy, as all time was devoured by the rift, torn by the Ingir's device. But that it would end all things forevermore was certain.
Oh my god, what the fuck, man? That is so dark. It still could mean that it basically is what we've been talking about before when we talked about what would happen if all the Chaos Gods would like die and therefore all life would die, and like if there was nothing left. It's basically the end of time. But there are so many concepts in this. It reminds me, like, for example, of The Color Out of Space, like this seed of corruption and end and death and alien weirdness that starts to eat into the ground and starts to devour everything there is until the end of time. And this sounds like that on a bigger scale. So basically, there's a scar in the world, and the materium, and it's starting to grow. It will be, in the end, like there will be nothing left. Like there will be an end to time of this universe. It's basically the end of the universe accelerated or created or something like that. That is so scary. That is very scary and well written as well. The scene you just read, it was like he's picking great quotes. Like there are not many quotes here, but the ones he picked were awesome and very, very well illustrated what he was trying to convey. So very well done, mate. Again, very well done.
Mad Magos believes that with the power of this device, he has in fact become a god, that he should be the rightful ruler of the Imperium, and he would use the breath of the gods to destroy Terra and Mars.
Is that canon, though, that this thing exists and started the end of time? Or could the Emperor change it, or a higher race or something?
And thankfully, by the end of the story, the machine and the surrounding system it is in end up getting destroyed. All of the captured energy that it had stolen reverts back to its point of origin.
So it unmade itself then, and it saved the universe? Interesting.
Stars that had been completely drained of life, burning once again with newfound vigor. Much like the celestial Orrery, it was never intended to be used by creatures that had such a linear grasp of the temporal flow.
Yeah, this seems to be, and here it makes sense as well with the time shenanigans, because we don't understand it. It's like, what the weird, like there's weirdness bleeding into our world. This is basically the color out of space reimagined on an astronomical cosmic scale in the future in Warhammer 40K, and I love it. I love it. Like that passage alone, oh wow, I'm at a loss for words. I love it. It's like brilliant.
And no ability to perceive what is referenced in the book as deep time. It's important to remember that when we see it in this story, it's not a Catan that is powering it, or at the very least, it's a very weak and dying shard of one. But the Magos had learned that the entropic fields generated by the species known as the Harad could also be used to power it. The results were remarkable, but only a fraction of what it was truly capable of. As the most horrifying thing of all was that Talok believed the legends that the Dragon to Mars was actually a living Catan, or at least a considerably powerful shard of one.
Yeah.
His ultimate goal was to go back to Mars, enter the Noctis Labyrintha, and slap the Void Dragon inside of this thing.
Hey, Void Dragon, come here. You go in there.
Increasing its ludicrous capabilities to a simply unimaginable level. With all of the weapons that we talked about today, there's a couple of things to bear in mind about how I rank them. The first is the purpose of each of these different things was built for something else. Something like the retcon gun is incredibly powerful, but considering it's something that can be wielded by infantry, and the only example we have of one being used was to kill a bunch of random crewmen, we have to put its full potential within the realm of speculation.
Yeah, that as well. Though I really love his list here, so I think we are through, and I will listen to the rest of course. But yeah, that was awesome. Like, wow, it was so much fun to do. I hope someone is still here. Perhaps you've all clicked off. But I love this video. It was so much fun doing it. I was like, okay, this is 40 minutes. It's gonna take me about 2 hours, and then like 2 hours again to like render and edit. And it's late now. Like I have work tomorrow, but this was worth it. I love this one. This is why I do this. So cool to think about and speculate. And of course, that's what I did. Speculation, nothing, like no canon. I know some canon, but as you know, I just speculated. And I hope you take it not as facts. Like, I hope you don't take it as me saying, yeah, I know how this is the right way, this is to be interpreted or whatever. It's just ideas, ideas that I have, as always. So, but yeah, really well done. And I guess he ranked it from like how much energy like uses it, like how much destructive energy can it release, so to speak.
And even still, although the technology is incredibly dangerous, the weapon itself potentially doesn't have the capability of destroying an entire planet or fleet of warships.
Yeah.
In the next category up, we have things that are capable of destroying starships, like the Nova Cannon or the black hole launching cannon of the Sperenza.
I'm still sad that the Nova Cannon is not a cannon that creates a nova. It's probably a small nova or something alike, but yeah.
After that, we have Exterminatus class weaponry that is capable of purging all life from a world, but not outright destroying it.
It's like the color shift scale, I think it's called, but with destruction and not with creation and usage of energy, like just the negative part.
However, I will point out real quick that the Night Hunter Conrad Kurz did destroy his planet of Nostromo by literally breaking it apart. This was done with Exterminatus class orbital bombardment.
Yes, and it was also done in Infinite Divine, so.
Focused on a very specific weak point in the planet's crust, believed to originate from the impact site where Conrad originally landed on the planet, which was then further exacerbated by Nostromo's intense adamantium mining operations. So yes, orbital bombardment was used to destroy a world, but this isn't normally how it goes, and it was kind of a special situation. For more reliable world cracking, we have to go further up the power scale to things like the Planet Killer, which is able to detonate a planet single-handedly with its armature Armageddon gun, whereas the Blackstone fortresses can kill an entire star system.
Yeah, there it started to get really interesting.
The Warhammer community likes to point to the Celestial Orrery as being the most powerful weapon to have ever existed.
The Celestial Orrery could, like, I could give you so many things, like using physics and sci-fi as well, like some fantasy here, like some of my fantasy. I could give you a lot of things to explain what this could be, but I love it. Like, it's very mysterious and I love it.
And although there is some truth to that, there are a few things to bear in mind. In its current state, it's not considered a weapon at all. It's a scrying device. We have no evidence of it being used as a weapon other than the fact that the lore tells us that it definitely can be.
How though, exactly? How was it? I need, like, if there's a video about this orrery, the Celestial Orrery, please tell me. I would love to know more about it. That's a weird and interesting concept that I need to know more, because currently I can just really just guess. Like, I have no clue what it could be, like, and how it works exactly. Like, because, like, basically he told me, yes, there are planets that it shows, and if you, like, touch a sun there, the real sun will blow up. I know I'm paraphrasing it. It's like he said a bit more, but that's basically what he said. So I need a lot more information about this. So if there is a book that has this as its core thing, tell me. If there is a lore video that has this, please tell me. Because this is an idea I find fascinating again.
And while the Orrery dynasty continues to exist, we probably will never see that happen. With the Breath of the Gods, on the other hand, we have an entire novel that explores what it is truly capable of, whereas the Celestial Orrery just kind of exists as a bit of background fluff in the Necron codexes. When directly comparing the two, the Celestial Orrery is capable of causing a whole bunch of supernovas across the galaxy, whereas the Breath of the Gods can simply erase the galaxy from the timeline.
Yeah, the timeline stuff again. I need to read up on that as well. Like, if there is a video, because he now has said it so often, there seems to be timeline lore in universe. And I asked last time about the time travel, and you said it's not clear. So there seems to be time travel in the warp through dreams or something like that, like premonitions, and I get that. But premonitions into the future are something else than traveling into the past. So if there is some video about the lore on time travel and timelines and stuff like that as well, please tell me as well, because then I can try to understand it better, because it did not get clear here what it is and what the rules are. Like is it like, do you have destiny traps? Can you change a timeline? Can you hop across timelines? Are they all simultaneous? You know, basic stuff. So I don't know that, so.
It's difficult to wrap our heads around what that even means, but it's certainly more powerful than the Orrery if we're trying to directly compare the two at their most powerful.
Yeah. I still think it's exactly that. It's like the same. It's probably, and you can shout at me if that's completely wrong, but whoever or whatever created Blackstone fortresses and might have, like, created Catan as a form of being and used them as batteries there in these things, and this is the only one left. Perhaps it was just like, hey, yeah, let's have some fun. We're going to ascend to a higher plane of existence, or we're going to leave the galaxy and play with another one, but let's just leave it here and have some fun. And, like, this is just their littering before ascending to higher dimensions or whatever. That would be so funny and hilarious.
Which one of the weapons that we talked about today was your favorite, and why? Which one do you think is the most terrifying?
Yeah, okay. That was it. Thanks for watching, and, like, oh, and I realized I still have the SCP background. I'm sorry. Of course, this is the real background. The planet being destroyed. My favorite one was probably the Blackstone Fortress, the Celestial Orrery, and this Breath of the Gods thing. And I can't put them in an order because I don't know enough about each of them, but they all sounded so great. I also like the Necron weapons because they made a lot of sense. Like, all the Necron weapons were things like, with one or two tweaks, they could even fit into today's physics, which is brilliant stuff, and I love stuff like that. But all the weapons were cool and interesting, and yeah. I hope you enjoyed this video and this reaction. Please tell me what I should do next, of course, and give me recommendations. There will probably not be a video at the weekend because I'm at the wedding of my brother-in-law. So there might be something on Sunday, I don't know yet. Check out my SCP reaction. You do not recognize the bodies in the water. Some cool SCP, my favorite one. And yeah, like, subscribe, all the good stuff, share the video. And if you're still here, and I hope someone is still here. And have a very, very, very good day, great day, and see you soon. And please tell me every mistake I made. Like, I'm not infallible, and in physics you only have very small areas of expertise, and like you get worse and worse in understanding stuff away from your areas of expertise. So I might have talked some rubbish as well, like that's possible. So if I made some mistakes, please correct me as well in the comments, or tell me, yeah, but I thought it was like this, and then I can answer. I might not answer soon because I've got a lot to do currently, but I will, as always, read all your comments, and I will down the line answer them as well, I promise. But yeah, I hope you understand that I might not immediately answer. So anyway, great day. And as I said, I'm repeating myself, take care of yourself as always. Have fun, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.